efforts made by all of the Janus staff, Renew staff, our brokers, new investors, including Powerhouse Ventures and Kyola, who have joined the register not just as investors but as partners. So we look forward to engaging with those and also our existing investors that can continue to join the ride. So thank you so much for all the people and the efforts and the staff that have been behind our listing. Just in terms of Q&A, please, there is a Q&A button that you can drop some questions into along the way, but also at the end we'll take any questions. You can raise your hands and we'll obviously, as people raise hands towards the end, we'll get to those questions as quick as we can. Moving straight forward into the presentation this morning, obviously the component for us, which is pretty exciting, is the listing. It did occur and it's taken place on May 21. The company raised its 8.8 million. We came in at 20 cents per share, and obviously closing out at 22 cents on our first day of trade was pretty exciting for all of us. So we're most pleased to be on the boards now, and the real business starts, and we'll run you through some of that process. For now, the proceeds, as announced, the ASX will be to scale the established truck conversion operations of our innovative battery and energy as a service business model. And obviously, we want to capitalise on the order book that we have of 142 to customers like Cube and Cement Australia. We'll move on to the next page. This is page 3. Just to sort of give you a bit of an overview of our purpose and priorities as we move through certainly the first 100 days as a listed company. Realistically, we still want to be the leader in the electrification of heavy road transport sector. Obviously, it's a significant achievement to date, but our ambitions are to go well beyond that with our priorities and next steps to be that disruptive force, improving the economics and productivity of the heavy road transport industry and by retrofitting existing diesel trucks and innovating through our smart technology to create long-term value for our shareholders. We are proudly Australian manufactured and invented battery technology. We offer electrification through repurposing those diesel prime movers, and we really want to convert as many as we can to get them onto the road and utilising our infrastructure and energy management solutions. Janus aims to recognise the innovator and commercialisation leader. We really want to be that commercialisation operator of electrification of the heavy transport sector as that battery and energy service model. And we will repeat that a fair bit, but battery and energy service as a model, as a service is our business model, and that's really what we want to make sure that we're known for. The priorities of management, myself and the board, obviously accelerate that delivery of contracted conversion orders. You've all heard us say this many times if you have been following us. The more trucks are on the road and operating, obviously that's better for us. It sees validation continue, and the more of those orders we get on the road, the more the recurring revenue starts to build for us. We will be working hard to secure key partnerships with both industry and government stakeholders, whether that's in country, whether that's licenses. We'll continue to look across all avenues of our partnerships, and that includes also our suppliers, who are working hard to obviously get as much supply but also get volume and economics of scale. We want to enhance our customer engagement. I'm looking forward to meeting many more of the customers that Janus is obviously currently has, but also those that are in the pipeline in negotiations. We want to build a robust fiscal platform, and that means talking to effective capital managers, but also to ensure that we have sustainable growth and we can execute on our pipeline. Moving to page 4. Around our investment highlights, utilising smart industry targeted technology. So this is really around our unique battery swapping solution. So the battery swapping solution, if you've been following Janus, it's really important, and the reason for that is the uptime. So the battery solution for us, it comes on the side of the truck. We pull those off and we put new batteries in. In under 5 minutes, we can keep the fleets operating. That's a really important economic advantage for the fleets, and we'll talk a little bit more around why people are looking at our technology. We do have a proven business case. It's really important. The page that you see there in front of you with the Cement Australia truck, we had the Minister for Transport, former Jay Halen. She came to open our first one down at Moorebank. If you're around that area, down the intermodal precinct, please, we'd call on you to go and have a look. We've got a number of trucks now that's nearly at full capacity, and that's utilising rooftop solar to support the power of that. Our growth prospects, we've now got 24 trucks successfully converted. We will have more to follow on the conversions as more roll off the floor in the coming weeks. You've heard about our 142 contracted orders in the pipeline. That's what we're really focused on executing. and the market is really strong. So there are around 124,000 registered trucks in Australia, prime movers, and we think our concept can apply to 80,000 of those trucks, and we're looking for a 1% market share, which would be 800 trucks. Our compelling economics component, we'll run through this a little bit more further down in the deck. The initial capital outlay is $175,000 to convert the truck, and on raw cost savings alone, that's the fuel savings, so diesel versus electric, so kilowatts per hour. We're looking at a saving of 20 cents a kilometre, but there's more of that is unknown because, as I said, the operational uptime is hard for us to actually pick. That's more the client side, which we'll go into a little bit more detail, but the savings are pretty enormous, especially after year one. The asset extension component for us is really around operating efficiencies. So if an asset comes in at its 4 years or 5 years and they want to extend for another 5 years, typically diesel trucks do need an overhaul or a refurbishment of its engine or its components, and we're really looking to try and extend those with electric motors. So we can talk more about that in a moment. We'll just move on to page 5. Just in terms of our revenue drivers and what they're derived from and the key metrics we look at, our model is really to earn revenues from the conversion, which is the top part, 175,000 per truck. So obviously, if we're 142 orders, we are 175,000 times 142. This is our conversion revenue, and then the rest of our model is based off a subscription fee, and that's to utilise our systems and our infrastructure. And some of those are around each battery swap, and some of those are around the kilowatt hours that go through, so the energy, and obviously we charge for that energy, and we make a margin from the energy we buy at and the energy we sell at. And so that is part of our model. And so our clients pay us, and those are charged every 2 weeks to every month, depending on the client. And so therefore, the one-off payment is the conversion, but going forward, the more trucks, as I said, we get on the road, therefore we get recurring payments build up, and the more trucks on the road, we get a larger pool of recurring revenue to invest in the business. Real impact and zero emissions option, it is real impact. The real impact being we are removing diesel, we are removing NOx and SOx and from the environment, and so therefore this really is a zero emission supply chain option that we're really trying to drive home. And a lot of the inquiry we're getting out of the market from clients is really the government procurement processes or their RFPs they're putting in the market is stipulating that they'd like a zero option to be included. And often that is actually the swinging of their case. And so we've had a number of inquiries for new contracts around whether it's road building, whether it's new works to actually put in the zero emissions transport. And so those inquiries are building. And so now we need to execute on those and negotiate further. Additional highlights, obviously, it does reduce noise pollution. It really does eliminate the particulate matter. And really, you're seeing here around the volatile imported fuel. So little known facts around that fuel, Lex being ex-diesel storage industry leader, he does really know about this, but there are government reports, ABC News, you can read it all, but essentially diesel in Australia, they argue between 15 days and 40 days of diesel in country at any one time, and some of those are counted because they're still on the ship. So this is really trying to make an impact around business security, but also Australia-wide to try and reduce our reliance upon something like 95% of diesel coming from offshore. And obviously climate commitments is the third component, which is around Australia's commitments to those. Moving on to page 6.
Thanks, Ian.
Lex.
Why are customers adopting Janus's solution is because it's a turnkey solution that gives greater benefits, and it's about fleets getting greater economic benefits from making this change to the Janus solution. The big differentiations is the significant uptime the fleets have with the battery swapping, but also utilisation of charging infrastructure that Janus has located around the country in key locations. It's a lower operational cost for the customer. It turns a CapEx piece for the battery into an OpEx solution for them. It also gives them a quick ability to offer zero emissions to their supply chain, and it's utilising their existing assets. The other piece with Janus is that we're able to seamlessly integrate with the Australian grid in a lot of locations because of the way we charge our batteries and our ability to shape the charge so that some of the sites, when there is a peak demand from there, we're able to reduce the charge through our charge stations and then charge outside of windows. So what the fleets like about the Janus solution is they're not parking a truck to meet charging windows. The battery is swapping and the truck remains still in operation. To put that into perspective, our major competitors are the plug-in EV prime movers. When you look at the analysis of that, those prime movers can spend anywhere from 20 to 30, 39 days a year sitting on a charge station waiting to re-energise. So when fleets are looking at this and making economic decisions, their uptime of that vehicle is severely impacted with the plug-in EV model in comparison to our Janus solution. And in a recent trial that we did in Sydney with MKD Transport, we ran our truck side by side with a Volvo plug-in. Our truck was able to be double shifted, and we were able to complete 3 round trips to the IKEA warehouse at Marsden Park from the port in comparison to the Volvo's 2 round trips and then having to be parked for 3 hours while they recharged it. So it's clearly a defining solution in the way transport needs to go for electrification and zero emissions. When we look at the Australian transport industry, it is a big market. It's 124,000 registered prime movers in our sector. People think trucks travel everywhere in Australia. It's far from what actually happens. 60 to 70% of Australia's fleet operate within a 200-kilometre radius of a capital city, and we have some really key high traffic highway routes and known freight tasks throughout Australia. If you look at the volume of trucks that travel between Sydney and Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne on the Hume and the Pacific highways, close to nearly 8,000 trucks on those highways on a daily basis. So there's a huge market in those corridors. As battery chemistry changes and we're able to extend the range, we'll look to explore those corridors and add that to our network. But our primary focus of where we are as a business is we're focused on round trips of 200 to 350 kilometres and trucks in fixed duty cycles. And as I mentioned, 60 to 70% of Australia's fleet are in high duty cycle fixed operations, be it running from a port operation, a pit to a mining pit to a port operation with some of our customers like Cube, or distribution of cement through capital cities out of cement berths like Cement Australia. There's an ample market for the Janus solution today. The other side of the Janus business as well too is as you look at our pathway to earnings, the conversion revenue at the moment, we've got a 15% gross margin. We're looking to expand that out to around 45 to 50 with some cost out projects that we're utilising some of these funds that have been raised in our production line and assembly line. And this will be both in componentry selection, scaling of orders with our suppliers to achieve a higher discount rate, and also some cost out measures in design, some minor design changes from what we've learned over the last 5 years of converting trucks. There's no surprise, our recurring revenue, we have a higher gross margin of around 50%, and this is the sale of energy and the utilisation of our infrastructure and usage fees and subscription fees that we charge the fleets to utilise the ecosystem. The key thing around the Janus battery technology is we're agnostic to cell chemistry. That means that as new cell chemistry becomes available, we can integrate it into our swappable battery solutions very, very simply. And fleets, this is a big draw card for a lot of our fleets, is because they are able to see that they can have a pathway to the latest technology more sooner than buying a fixed battery asset vehicle, and they're not wedded to that for the life of the asset. What we're also seeing is it's an extension of life of the truck, where by converting it to electric, we'll see the extension of the asset life of another 10 to 15 years for the fleet in comparison to its diesel counterparty. When they look at a diesel truck, effective life of a diesel truck is around 15 years of age. We will extend that. We'll extend that for another 10 years. So it's very appealing for fleets. When we look at the global opportunities, as you may have heard, we've got 2 trucks going to the US market into the Port of LA and Long Beach with our client Ability Trimodal. And we've recently signed a dealership agreement with EVC or EV Choice, who is a converter of diesel vehicles in the US, in California, and they will be performing the conversions of the vehicles there for the first 2 battery swapping prime movers that will be in operation in the US. We don't know of any other battery swapping prime movers that are in operation in the US, and when we look at the opportunity in the Port of LA and Long Beach. There's 26,000 trucks registered there that operate out of those two ports on a daily basis, and the majority of their freight task is within a 150-mile radius. They call them drayage trucks in the US, but it's a 150-mile radius of the Port of LA. So it's a very big opportunity for Janus, and we'll see us with a very good entry point into the US market. We're also looking at some joint ventures. We're in discussions with a JV into the Indonesian market, as well as South Africa in mining applications in both of those regions, and also a similar interest in New Zealand from the logging industry and cement and construction industry as well too, which we're in discussions with joint venture parties in each of those regions as well too. Good thing about New Zealand and South Africa, trucks are very similar to Australia, as well as the Indonesian market. We have a similarity in prime movers and brands that we've already converted. So it will be a reasonably seamless integration into those regions. As we mentioned, we're targeting closed loop operations at the moment. One of the things we're very mindful of is getting good utilisation out of our infrastructure. We're not building infrastructure and hoping we have a client. We're building infrastructure with our clients, and that's one of the key differences. Is we are focused on where our clients are, understanding what their requirements are, and what that allows us to do is have very predictable energy usage, and we're able to predict when we are needing to swap a battery. But it gives us a good understanding, and this is the key difference with the Janus solution with the ecosystem, where we're seeing all of the data in real time from the fleets, from our charge stations, from the grid, optimizing charging. We're able to understand exactly where we need to place infrastructure and how we need to scale the infrastructure based on our fleet usages. One of the other things we've delivered is the heaviest electric road train truck in the world. You can see it behind me here, but we're up to a 240-ton payload capability with our prime movers. So it brings the mining industry and opportunities that we're exploring within the mining industry on off-road road trains operating within mine precincts to light very quickly, and allows us to compete with the dump trucks based on the payloads.
Okay.
So recently, you may have noticed we moved the facility about 6 weeks ago. We're into a large-scale facility here on the Central Coast where we have everything under one roof, and we're not over 2 sites anymore. What this will allow us to do is help automate and improve our manufacturing and procurement processes to scale the business. It allows us to have multiple trucks in an assembly line process now, with key workstations identified so that we can really optimise our labour and our supply chain to deliver a saving and improved margin across our assembly line, but also allows us to scale the business over the next 3 to 5 years without having to change facilities as we move forward. We've also had the implementation of additional dealership networks across Australia. So we have Western Australia and South Australia, both in Perth and Adelaide, with 2 dealers on board there. The first conversion in South Australia is just completing, should be completed mid-June, with our dealer down there, with more trucks penciled in to come into that dealership network. We're also in negotiations with a Victorian and New Zealand dealership right at the moment as well too, and aiming to finalise those very shortly so that we can expand the dealer network and look to convert trucks in-state rather than bringing them directly in through the assembly line here. Just to give you a bit of an overview of where we are today, this is sort of the up to the second week of May. 1,140 tonnes of carbon abated. We've now got a confirmed travelled over nearly 430,000 kilometres and approaching 2,700 battery swaps very quickly. Nearly to a gigawatt of electricity sold through the network so far through our trucks, and 7 charge stations deployed, and the 24th truck will be rolling out of the factory today. So it's a good scorecard. This is how we look at our business, and this is how we judge ourselves, and we'll make these numbers available on a routinely basis, which will be accessed through the website. The key to you may have seen some recent press from CATL out of China. They're the largest battery manufacturer in the world, and they've just confirmed our business model is a pathway forward for the electrification for road transport. They believe it is battery swapping. So when you've got the largest manufacturer of batteries in the world making those sorts of announcements, it really shows that Janus is at the leading edge of this technology and transition of the energy industry for the transport business, for the transport market. As mentioned, we can swap a battery in less than 5 hours, and less than 5 minutes, and we charge a battery in less than 4 hours at our charge stations. This eliminates range anxiety for the fleets. It reduces that upfront capital cost, but it enables us to have a battery as a service recurring revenue stream for our business. It is proprietary technology, and once a truck is converted to the Janus system, it must use the Janus system. So we have a very sticky customer that must use our infrastructure and our battery technology. The other key part to this is the real-time monitoring. So when you think of the Janus business, there is really 3 key pillars to the business. Obviously, there is the truck conversion operations and the dealership network for converting the trucks. But then we have our infrastructure business, which is our charging infrastructure, as well as our battery network. And then the third pillar is the energy sales. So the sale of electricity, essentially buying at a wholesale price and selling into the market at a retail price. If you'd like to check out some of the safety statistics and the safety data on our vehicles, feel free to download the NCAP safety rating app. It's got all of the vehicles that we've converted and their data sheets available in real time. And this is provided for emergency services around the country as well too. I'll throw back over to you, Ian.
Thanks, Lex. The leadership team we have run through a number of times, but I think what we're excited by is to have a group really convinced and really behind us, helping Lex drive the business, but also putting our governance in line, but also strategy to help us to put that together. And I think it's really important as we identify, with Dennis, Christy, Tony, Greg, and Lex and myself, that this is going to take a village. We are an innovative new company. We're driving to accelerate, to grow our operations, but also our length, but also utilize partnerships. And whilst this is the leadership here team in front of us, we're really going to require many in the renewable space but partnerships and really solid leadership and ideas. And so, we're open to anything in terms of those conversations, because the renewable industry, the battery industry continues to evolve and innovate. And so we want to be at the forefront. We're utilizing AI as much as we can in our operations, and you'll see some of those advancements coming through in the coming weeks as we put forward some of the ideas into reality. So we're really looking forward to working with the leadership team, but also our customers and our partners. So we'll pause there, Lex, and see if we can answer some of the Q&A.
Yeah, definitely. So in regards to, there's a question there from Steve from Ramcap. The software ecosystem, yes, we are committing to a service level agreement in the ecosystem, as well as our customers committing to us as well to utilise our infrastructure and assets. And we do offer 24-hour support, and that's one of the reasons we get paid 4 cents a kilowatt hour as a usage fee for every kilowatt hour that flows through the motor in the trucks, and also through the charging infrastructure as well. In regards to mobile battery support for the future, we don't see the batteries are mobile, they're on the truck, but I wouldn't see that we would be moving batteries to sites. We have had some inquiries around being able to charge batteries at landfill gas sites and then bring them out to a transport sector, because they can't base the trucks at the tip. So there is some opportunities around those sorts of things, but it's more so around utilising the infrastructure where we are. Yes, we are expecting to try and uplift our conversion numbers, and this is in a ramp-up stage. So, one of the things we needed to do was the capital piece was the first part of the business. Now it's about scaling the business and putting that capital to work. So we will look to scale our numbers, but it will be scaled our numbers in a measured pathway, making sure that we extract the most amount of value out of our infrastructure, our assets, and our assembly line, and do it with a better margin across our assembly line, which will come.
And just to add in there, for that answer, it's really into 2 aspects. It's the facility here on the Central Coast, but it's that dealership model. They're the 2 accelerators which will help us, but also the adoption. And so the more trucks you get on the road, the more adoption you see. And so we need to move out of having some customers ask us for a trial truck for 1 week when realistically we're in commercialization. We've moved from prototype commercialization and now we're in growth. So, we're waiting to see larger fleets that really require, our attention over time. That's going to be more beneficial than driving one for a week. So we really need to move into that zone, and that will help us the adoption rate.
There's another question there around wear and tear on batteries. So our current cycle life on our batteries is 5,000 cycles. What does a cycle mean? It means a charge and a discharge of the battery. That is counted as a cycle. So currently, with our current battery swapping rates, we're seeing effective life of the battery in transport somewhere between 7 to 10 years. We're completing some discussions with a contract manufacturer for batteries that will take us out to a 14,000 cycle life, which will be somewhere between a 20 to 23 year battery asset. A battery is not at its end of life at that cycle point. It will just be out of state of charge where we will look to utilize it in static storage and utilize that infrastructure, that battery asset infrastructure, to be able to use it to support grid and participate in FCAS markets. And utilize the battery infrastructure as a storage static storage unit in the coming future.
Sure, and I've just seen one in chat, Lex, from Carl. Thank you, Carl, for your question. How long does it take to fulfil the existing orders? Yeah, Lex outlined that around 2 per month is what we're looking to build from today. So what you'll see us doing is just ramping that up steadily as we get suppliers. We build those relationships around the suppliers. Obviously, our attention has been very much on the listing over the last few weeks, so we're really looking forward to getting into those improvements that we've talked about. And the faster we get through those improvements, we deliver less weight to our clients. They see that that's coming forward, and the technology side on the batteries is the quicker we'll be able to get through the delivery cycle, and therefore we'll start to build up the orders over time to roll those out. So it's going to be pretty programmatic. We're going to have to be ensure that we get this right from the start. So you'll see us build that number up going forward from 2.
There's a question there from Damon around the cattle announcement. We are reaching out to cattle to have that discussion with them from that announcement, and we'll keep you guys aware of that, where we're heading to. Yep, I've got that. Yep, Kirk. Look out! We've got an ambition of getting to 1% of the Australian market at this stage, which we think is around 800 trucks. I think the business is set to scale, and there is no reason why we couldn't see us achieve a higher market share of what we are. But one of the things we are very focused on is not getting over our skis. It's about doing this in a measured response, and making sure that we have good return for shareholders, profitable and a very structured and stable business, and a good platform to launch from. So, scale is definitely available to the business, but it's just making sure we don't get ahead of ourselves too quickly.
Yeah, I think if you think around the 175,000 times our existing order book of 142, delivered over the next couple of years, clearly that number of 24 million is the goal, and that's conversion. And so those are the sort of goals that we'd like to achieve.
The recent IKEA trial, I touched on that in the presentation, but it was very successful. We ran side by side with the Volvo Prime Mover and plug-in. As I mentioned, we were able to double shift our vehicle, and we were able to complete 3 loads in the 12-hour period, as opposed to the Volvo only being able to complete 2 and being parked on the charge station for a 3-hour charging window. So we're expecting to hear confirmation of our proposal there for the first trucks to go into operation in Sydney, and hoping to hear have that successfully awarded in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Damon, thanks again for that on the cattle. We've seen those, and they really do validate what we've had for 5 years. In fact, cattle did come and look at Lex's idea along with Bevan quite a few years ago. So we won't say anything more than that, but it's great that they've come out to say that, because it really is going to help us validate around that swappable battery being the way the road transport sector is going to solve for electrification.
In regards to the customers are paying for the conversions of the trucks, we're not funding the conversion of the trucks. The infrastructure what we're utilising some of the capital for is to buy additional batteries and roll out additional charging infrastructure where required. So that's one of the things we are doing, is we're not offering a discounted or a funded truck for a customer. And it's a tribute to the success of what we've had with Cement Australia and Fennel Forestry. We've now got Fennel Forestry looking to add an additional truck into their fleet. Cement Australia are in the process of finalising another order for 8 trucks for their Gladstone rail operation. So it's starting to see repeat orders from our existing client base, as well as new clients entering in. I think one of the key interesting parts around our technology, it's now been written into a tender of an infrastructure project in South Australia for the tunnel segments being carted into the Torrens to Darlington tunnelling project in South Australia. It's a $18 billion project starting down there next year in April, which will see close to another 11 Janus trucks in operation down there with either existing customers or new customers. We've had a number of new inquiries from fleets looking to submit their tender with our technology. So when we're having government infrastructure projects being won by the construction companies based on our technology and then having it written into their tenders, it's a very good piece for the Janus business. So we'll see more orders out of South Australia. And we've also got one of our existing clients that has won a major freight task down there with BHP over the next 15 years based on utilising electric trucks on either end of a train model from Port Adelaide up to Pimba, and then servicing the train from either end with electric trucks to mine sites. So it is a great it's great to see. Look, there is our motor manufacturer, our electric motor manufacturer, Dana. I'm just answering your question here, Mark, in regards to buses. They have a e-axle that they've asked us to look at and potentially discuss around whether or not we can do something on buses. There is that opportunity, but the bus market in Australia, I think it's only about 47,000 buses. So the big thing for us is to remain focused on where we are, concentrate on those market segments where one of the reasons we've focused on Class 8 prime movers is they use more energy. And because we're in the business of selling energy, we want that as our base to start with. As the business matures over the coming years, I think there will be opportunities for us to look at where our technology can apply in other sectors. But I think the key thing is stabilisation, good consistent run rate, delivering what we say we're going to do with our clients, and putting the financial runs on the board for the business.
Damon, capital, we'll assess this as we go along. If we have to go back to market in the future, that's because we're going to need it to continue to obviously facilitate more conversion. So look, for now, we're just going to focus on ramping up at our existing facility with the capital we have, and continue to look for partnerships along the way to ensure that we have capital to roll this fantastic innovation out into the world. So we'll keep you posted on those changes, and as we get through this initial period, having taken quite some time to get this capital over the last few months, we need time to now focus the business.
Just in answer to Alan's question around solid states, yes, the form factor for the Janus solution is agnostic to battery cell chemistry. So when you look at our existing battery packs, we use an NMC battery cell. We have 525 cells each side of the battery, so 1,050 cells. What we've created is a common form factor. What cell we choose to put inside the form factor, we're agnostic to, but it's got to meet the economic and safety requirements for us to be able to look at that. But at this stage, we're utilising NMC, and we're in discussions with sodium ion at the moment as our two leading chemistries, and they'll be long duration cell chemistry. So both the sodium ion and the NMC will be 14,000 cycle life cells. So it'll see good utilisation of our assets. Kirk, you've got a question there on sustainability and swapping to integrate with grid capacity? Yes. So look, the short-term piece at the moment is we are optimizing our charge stations by turning off during peak power demand between 4 p.m. in the afternoon through to 9 p.m. at night because of the duty cycles. What we're able to do is our charge stations will be able to invert back into the grid in the coming months. We're in a process of going through the R&D of turning our charging infrastructure back into inverters so that essentially we can utilise the battery assets within our charge stations to invert back into the grid. The key to this is about understanding what the energy requirements are of our fleets, and that's what the ecosystem does. It tells us what the trucks are using energy-wise in real time, so we can understand and predict when we need to have a battery available for the fleet. And what that then allows us to do is look at and make economic decisions on what the wholesale power pricing is doing, but also then look at revenue opportunities out of the charge stations from inversion of power back into the grid. As we move forward, the longer term vision is that our secondary life for our batteries is in virtual power networks within our infrastructure. So as batteries move to a different stage of life, they will be removed from truck operations and then be utilised as static storage as a battery energy storage solution. And that when you look at our batteries in the 5-year window or 7-year window, you'll see that they're still going to have roughly around 400 to 500 kilowatts of available energy out of each of the systems at that second stage in life. So it's, this is a transition from road transport into grid support as well too, and it's why the Janus solution is so unique in the way that we've designed it.
Lex, we'll just take the liability component, NMC, battery fires. Of course, battery fires are a part still of the evolving technology, and as it gets better, we're getting better as we get more monitoring systems. We've got very good systems on monitoring battery health, and so we can continue to utilize new technology, new algorithms to make sure that the batteries are being monitored completely. Look, battery fires obviously do make the press quite a bit. There is the liability there, but we also need to make sure that people understand that. Look through the insurance data that shows you that there's a diesel fire in Australia just about every other day. So it's important to put that into context. So around that, the battery fire we had in October 2023, our insurer paid us out fully for that, and they continue to be supportive. Super fast charging, it's a great debate.
Yeah. So we could have super fast charging as well too, but the problem is you just can't get the energy out of the grid. And you can't scale that. So there's some really good papers, and we're happy to distribute this to the attendees here, of studies that have been done basically that are showing that battery swap is the way to go forward. The reality of it is the trucks that where we're participating, our trucks, we're using a 180 kilowatt charger. Our trucks, we're on average putting about 500 to 550 kilowatts back into the battery every charge cycle at every exchange. So even with super fast charging at a megawatt, that's still a 30-minute feed. But the problem you've got with that is you can't get the power supply out of the infrastructure to be able to scale that. And this is the challenge. And there's some really great papers around, and cattle understand this very well. That's why they've gone to battery swapping, because even in China, to be able to get super fast charging, the Chinese grid infrastructure is probably some of the best electrical infrastructure in the world. They also see the challenges with that. Not to mention, then you've also got to look at how you utilize that charger and what that does to the grid. That if you've got large fleets of trucks that you can't predict when are coming to the grid, to be able to stabilise that and offer that makes it extremely challenging to be able to manage what that does to the grid infrastructure, as opposed to having a known charge time and a known charge rate. It just makes sense to be able to do
how much that's going to cost, right?
Yeah,
well.
It's
not just the infrastructure to put that much power through in that time. How much is it going to be charged at? So I think that's the key there, Lex, right? Also, and again, to your point, it's why the largest manufacturer of batteries in the world is backing swappable batteries. not fast charging.
Just in regards to swapping stations between Melbourne and Sydney, yes, we've got that plan, but what we're also mindful of is just looking at as our battery ranges increase. That will be a phase 2 of the rollout of the infrastructure. We're in a third discussion with ARENA at the moment in regards to a trial on the Pacific Highway. So we'll be exploring those areas, but what we're looking for and waiting for is the longer energy, the greater energy density within our batteries, so that we can get a little bit further than our existing technology. And that's coming with the sodium ion and the new NMC batteries that we're looking at with electrifying.
I think if we've seen some questions pause there, Summer, we might wrap up.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was fabulous. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
As Summer says in the Q&A, if you have any more questions, anything further, or any ideas, any innovations, any contacts, we're open to all components. This is going to take all of us to try and ensure that this is put forward into practice and adopted more broadly across the country. So thank you for your attention and your time, and thank you for your support.
Appreciate everyone, and we will be looking to conduct a factory tour towards the end of June, early July. So if that's of interest, we will notify people of that day when we have an open day for investors to come through the facility and see what Janus has developed and what you're a part of. Thank you, everyone, for your support.